The morning sun barely cut through the mist hanging over the pine trees. Snowflakes clung to the wooden rooftops, and smoke curled gently from chimneys, whispering stories of warmth and survival. Down the narrow path that led to the forest stood Clara Dawson, a young widow in her late 20s, her eyes carrying the weight of endless nights. Her coat was thin, her hands trembling as she adjusted the scarf around her neck. Beside her, clutching her skirt tightly, was Eli, her 6-year-old son, small, fragile, with eyes too bright for a life that had already known too much loss. Clara looked toward the deep woods. The villagers often said, "No one goes there alone. That's where the lumberjack lives." But Clara had no choice. Winter was swallowing the village, and her firewood was gone. Her husband, Thomas, had died 2 years ago in a mining accident, leaving her with debts, whispers, and a child who still asked every night when Daddy was coming home. Scene 2, the forest path. Snow crunched under her worn boots. Each breath turned into fog in the cold air. "Mom, is he scary?" Eli asked softly, his mittens tugging on her sleeve. She smiled, though her lips trembled. "No, sweetheart, he just likes to be alone." The truth was she didn't know. All she'd heard were rumors. They said the lumberjack was a giant of a man who lived far from the village, haunted by something he never spoke of. They said he had eyes like a storm, wild and silent at once. And that morning Clara needed his help. Her roof was breaking, her fire was gone, her hope running thin. Scene 3, the cabin in the pines. The forest opened suddenly, revealing a small wooden cabin built strong and steady against the mountain wind. An axe was wedged deep in a stump nearby. Smoke rose from the chimney. Clara hesitated. She could turn back, but Eli's small hand held her tightly. She knocked. The door creaked open, revealing a tall man in a flannel shirt, with hands rough from years of chopping, a beard flecked with frost, and eyes gray, deep, unreadable. He looked at her, then at the boy. "Yes?" his voice rumbled. I'm sorry to bother you," Clara began, trying to sound calm. "My name is Clara Dawson. I live down by the creek. I heard you sell firewood. I can pay, just not all at once." The man's gaze softened slightly. "You came through the woods for that?" She nodded. He studied her, her chapped lips, her trembling fingers, the boy's thin coat. Then he stepped aside. "Come in, before you both freeze." Scene 4, inside the cabin. The warmth hit them like sunlight. A small fire burned in the hearth, and the smell of pine wood filled the air. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. Clara sat nervously, Eli climbing onto her lap. "I'll bring you something warm," the man said, pouring 2 mugs of tea. As she accepted the cup, her eyes landed on the wall, framed with wood, carvings, detailed, beautiful, every carving told a story: wolves, mountains, and one of a woman holding a child. "You make these?" she asked softly. He nodded. "When I'm not chopping trees." "You're very talented." He gave a small, almost forgotten smile. "Used to be a carpenter once." She hesitated, then said, "I never caught your name." "Jack." She nodded. "Jack the lumberjack, then." He almost smiled again. "Yes, so." Scene 5, a quiet connection. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, yes, but real. Eli was staring at a small wooden bird on the shelf. "It's so pretty." "Can I touch it?" Jack's rough voice softened. "You can have it." Clara's eyes widened. "Oh, no, we couldn't." "It's fine," Jack interrupted gently. "Took me 5 minutes to carve." The boy's smile lit the dim cabin. "Thank you, mister!" Jack turned back to the fire, hiding a small smile of his own. Something about the boy's laughter cracked something in him, a memory he'd buried long ago. A tiny hand, a voice saying, "Daddy, look what I made." He shut his eyes, pushing the thought away. Scene 6, the widow's plea. When the tea was done, Clara stood up. "Thank you, Mr. Jack. I'll pay you as soon as I can." Jack folded his arms. "You don't owe me anything yet. I'll bring the firewood tomorrow." Her lips parted in surprise. "You'd do that? Without payment?" He shrugged. "You've got a boy. It's cold. That's enough reason." Her eyes glistened. "You're very kind." Jack didn't answer. He just nodded and turned toward the window. As she and Eli left, the sun was already sinking. But for the first time in months, she felt something new, a strange, small warmth that wasn't from fire. Hope. Scene 7. The village gossip. The next day, Jack arrived at her small cottage, carrying a bundle of wood on his shoulder. Villagers stared. "Look at that," one woman whispered. "The widow and the wild man." Another sneered. "She'll bring trouble to herself." Clara ignored them, though every word cut her deeper than she showed. She smiled as Jack stacked the wood neatly outside. "You didn't have to do this," she said. Jack wiped his hands on his coat. "You didn't have to say thank you." She smiled again, soft, grateful. Then Eli came running out with the wooden bird. "Mom, Mr. Jack came." Jack knelt down. "You keeping my bird safe, champ?" Eli nodded proudly. Something about the word champ slipped out naturally, and it made Clara's heart twist in her chest. Scene 8. A favor unexpected. That night the village was alive with talk. The mayor was hosting a winter festival. Clara didn't want to go, but Eli begged her. "Please, Mama, all the other kids will be there, please." She hesitated. The last time she went, people whispered behind her back about being the poor widow, but she couldn't deny her son joy. The problem was, Eli had been asking something else for weeks. "Mom," he said one night, looking at her with those wide eyes, "can we have a daddy again? Just for one day?" The words stabbed through her. "Eli, you know Daddy's in heaven." "I know, but the other kids will bring their dads to the festival. Can't someone pretend just for today?" She froze. The question lingered in her heart for days, until one snowy morning she found herself walking the same forest path again. Scene 9. The question that changed everything. Jack was splitting logs outside his cabin when he saw her approach. He frowned slightly, resting the axe on his shoulder. "You again? Need more wood?" She smiled nervously. "No, I came to ask you something else." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Go on." She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. It's about my son. The village is having a festival tomorrow, and he doesn't have a father to go with him." Jack's expression shifted, but he stayed silent. "I know it's foolish," she continued quickly, "but he asked if someone could pretend just for one day. I told him no, but then I thought of you. You're kind, and he likes you. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate." The forest was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Jack spoke. "You want me to pretend to be your boy's father?" She nodded, embarrassed, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Just for one day." Jack looked away, his jaw tightening. The past clawed at him, the sound of his own child's laughter, long buried under grief. He turned back, his voice low. "All right." Clara blinked. "You'll do it?" Jack nodded slowly. "For the boy." Her tears fell freely now, relief, gratitude, something deeper she couldn't name. "Thank you, Jack," she whispered. He looked toward the horizon, where the sun was setting behind the pines. "Don't thank me yet," he said softly. "I don't know if I still remember how to be someone's father." Closing scene, the eve before the festival. As night fell over the valley, Clara watched from her window as snow began to drift again. Inside, Eli was fast asleep, holding the wooden bird close to his chest. And far away in his cabin, Jack sat by the fire staring at an old, faded photograph, a woman with dark hair and a little girl on her lap. He whispered to the flames, "Maybe it's time." Outside, the wind carried the echo of a new beginning. The stranger in the woods was about to become family. The first pale light of morning spilled over the rooftops, glinting off frosted windows. The village stirred to life, and Clara awoke with a strange flutter in her chest. Eli was already up, his breath fogging the cold air as he hurried to get dressed. Today wasn't just any day, it was the festival day. Clara caught her reflection in the mirror, her eyes tired but hopeful. She reached out and smoothed Eli's hair gently. "Ready, champ?" she asked. Eli's face broke into a wide grin. "Ready, Mom." Scene 2, Jack's transformation. Far in the woods, Jack stood before his small mirror inside the cabin. A flannel shirt freshly pressed, boots polished and his beard trimmed with care. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture foreign to the man used to rough work and solitude. He breathed deep, staring at the face looking back, rugged, worn, but with eyes that flickered with a new kind of resolve. "Time to learn how to be a dad again," he muttered. He picked up the wooden bird Eli had treasured and practiced holding it gently, as if preparing for a role he feared might break him. Scene 3, meeting at the doorstep. Clara's cottage door opened to reveal Jack, standing awkward yet determined, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Morning," he grunted softly. "I brought these." Clara took them, eyes misting. "They're beautiful." "Thank you." Eli ran forward, grabbing Jack's hand with all the excitement a child can muster. "Come on, mister. Let's go." Jack looked down, surprised by the warmth bubbling inside him. Scene 4, walking to the festival. The three of them walked through the village streets, heads turning at the sight of the lumberjack, walking proudly beside the widow and her son. "Look, it's Jack," whispered a little girl nearby. The villagers exchanged surprised glances. This was new. Jack kept his gaze forward, but inside, a mix of anxiety and something like pride twisted inside him. Eli skipped ahead, tugging Jack's hand and telling him about everything, the stalls, the games, the big feast. Jack listened, asking questions awkwardly but sincerely. Scene 5, at the festival. The village square was alive with laughter, music, and twinkling lights. Children ran with painted faces, couples danced, and the smell of roasted chestnuts and fresh bread filled the air. Eli pulled Jack toward the game booths. "Try this, mister." Jack fumbled, but Eli's infectious enthusiasm made him smile more freely than he had in years. For a moment, Jack was just a man, not a ghost of his past. Scene 6, the father-son moment. Later, Jack sat with Eli on a bench, watching the fire dancers sway under the moonlight. Eli leaned against him, sleepy and content. "Thank you for coming, mister," Eli whispered. Jack swallowed hard. "You can call me Dad today." Eli's eyes sparkled. "Really?" Jack nodded, heart pounding. "Really?" The night wrapped around them like a promise, a fragile new beginning forged in fire and trust. Scene 7, village eyes and whispered words. Not everyone was pleased. "Why's that wild man pretending to be a father?" A bitter voice spat from the shadows. "He's not like us," muttered another. Clara overheard, but held her head high. Today was about Eli. Today was about hope. Jack's presence was a quiet rebellion against despair. Scene 8, a quiet confession. Back at Clara's cottage, the fire crackled softly. Jack and Clara sat across from each other, exhaustion and relief mingling in the air. "You were good with him today," Clara said softly. Jack looked away. "I wasn't sure I could do it. Being a father. It's been so long." Clara reached out, her hand brushing his. "Maybe you haven't forgotten." He met her eyes. "Maybe." For the first time, silence between them was not a wall, but a bridge. Scene 9, the night that changed everything. Eli was asleep upstairs. Jack stood by the window staring out at the endless pines, thinking about the years lost. The child he once held, the woman he once loved. Clara came up behind him quietly. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack turned, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. "No, thank you." "For letting me try." She smiled, fragile but real. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the promise of tomorrow. And somewhere deep inside, a lonely lumberjack's heart was beginning to heal. Closing scene, a new dawn. Morning came soft and golden. Jack, Clara, and Eli stood together at the edge of the forest, ready to face the world, not as strangers, but as something new. Not just pretending anymore. Family.